Your daughter got a B. No gifts for her this Christmas. Dad announced while giving her presents to sister's kids at my house. My 11-year-old had worked with tutors all year. Mom said only excellence gets rewarded. She watched them open her gifts. I filmed it, shared it. When grandparents judge good grades, when Dad's clients saw it and started, "My name is Abraham. I'm 34 years old. I'm a long-haul truck driver, the kind who knows which gas stations have clean bathrooms and which ones will charge you $8 for a stale sandwich." In my family, I'm the reliable one, the background one, the one who answers the phone, the one who sends money, the one who shows up with a toolbox and fixes the thing, then leaves before anyone remembers to say thank you. My sister Tiffany is the golden one. She's 32, loud, confident, always going through something, and somehow always gets rescued before she hits the ground. Her kids are treated like little royalty. Everyone rearranges their lives for them. Everyone claps for them. I have one kid, Mia. She's 11. Mia is the reason I grind through 12-hour drives and sleep in parking lots. She's the reason I keep my temper in check. She's the reason I bought a small house, even though I'm barely in it half the month. I wanted her to have one place that felt safe and predictable. This year, school hit her hard. New teacher, harder math. She got stuck and she actually asked for help instead of pretending she was fine. So I did what any parent would do. I paid for tutors, not a once-an-age thing. All year, every Tuesday and Thursday, $60 a session. That's $120 a week. Over the school year, it's not small money. It's skip takeout, skip new boots, skip everything extra money. But Mia worked. She'd sit at the kitchen table, hair in a messy bun, pencil smudges on her fingers, whispering to herself like, "Okay, borrow, carry, okay." She'd look up at me and ask, "Dad, am I dumb?" And I'd say, "No, you're learning." That's literally the whole point. My parents don't see it like that. My dad, Frank, has always had this weird obsession with excellence. Like if you're not the best, you're nothing. My mom, Carol, backs him up like he's reading scripture. I should have known Christmas would turn into a lesson. We hosted at my house because I'm usually on the road and I wanted one year where Mia could wake up in her own bed and not feel like a guest in someone else's living room. I cooked, I cleaned. I put up the fake tree Mia picked out at Walmart because she said the ugly one looked friendly. My parents arrived 2 hours late. Tiffany arrived even later because of course she did. My dad walked in holding 3 gift bags in a box. He didn't even say hi to Mia. He said, "Where's the report card?" I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. Mia's shoulders tightened. She looked at me like, "Please don't let this be a thing." My mom smiled. That tight little smile she does when she thinks she's being classy while being cruel. "She got it right?" Mom asked. I said, "Yeah, she got a B in math and she worked her butt off for it." My dad's face changed. Not angry. Worse, disappointed, like she'd personally embarrassed him. He set the gift bags on my coffee table and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Your daughter got a B. No gifts for her this Christmas." And then he picked up the bags again and walked them straight over to Tiffany's kids. Right there in my living room, in my house, at the place where Mia was supposed to feel safe. Tiffany's son, Braden, yelled, "Yes!" and started ripping tissue paper like it was a race. Tiffany's daughter, Leia, squealed and bounced on my couch with her shoes on. Mia didn't move. She just stared at the bags like she didn't understand what she was seeing. My mom patted Mia's shoulder like she was petting a dog and said, "Only excellence gets rewarded, honey." Mia blinked fast. Her mouth opened like she wanted to speak, then closed again. I felt this hot wave go through my chest. That feeling you get right before you say something you can't take back. But I didn't explode because Mia was watching. So I did the only thing I could think of in that moment. I pulled out my phone and I hit record. To understand why that moment wrecked me, you need the backstory. Growing up, I wasn't abused. I wasn't locked in a closet. Nothing like that. It was just constant comparison. Tiffany got praised for breathing. I got praised when it was convenient. If Tiffany brought home a C, my mom would say, "Eek, she's trying. School isn't her thing." If I brought home an A dash, my dad would say, "Why not an A?" If Tiffany wanted dance classes, she got them. If I wanted to join a sports team, my dad would ask, "Who's paying for the gear?" So at 15, I got a job. At 17, I was working weekends. At 18, I left home and never moved back. I became a truck driver because I didn't have the time or money to find myself. I needed a paycheck that could actually build something. And for a while, it was fine. I kept my head down, worked, saved, built a life. Then I had Mia. Her mom and I didn't work out. No cheating drama. No screaming court battles. Just 2 people who realized they were better parents apart than together. We co-parent. We're civil. We show up for Mia. My parents, though, they treated Mia like she was a grade on a spreadsheet. They asked about her report cards more than they asked about her feelings. They'd send Tiffany's kids piles of stuff just because, then tell Mia, "We'll see how you do this semester." I tried to ignore it. I tried to be the bigger person. I told myself they're old. They don't mean harm. They're just weird about school. And then my dad started bringing his rules into my house. Last spring, Mia got sick and missed a few days. She had makeup work. She was stressed. She still did fine overall. My dad visited on one of my home weekends and saw her sitting at the table, frustrated, tapping her pencil. He said, What's wrong with you? Mia said quietly, I'm stuck. My dad snorted. Stuck? At 11? That's not stuck. That's lazy. I said, Dad. He ignored me and told Mia, when I was your age, I could do this in my head. Mia's eyes went shiny, but she didn't cry. She just nodded and stared at the paper. That night after they left, she asked me, does Grandpa think I'm stupid? And I said, Grandpa thinks everyone should be perfect because he can't handle real life. That's his problem, not yours. That's when I hired the tutors. I didn't tell my parents at first because honestly I didn't want their opinions. But my mom found out anyway because Tiffany can sniff out money like a bloodhound. Tiffany called me one evening while I was parked at a rest stop eating beef jerky like it was dinner. She said, so you're paying for tutors? I said, yeah. She laughed. Must be nice. Us. I said, it's not nice, it's expensive, but Mia needs it. Tiffany's voice went sweet. Fake sweet. Well, if you have extra money like that, Dad's been stressed. You could help him out or help me out. I said, what do you mean help you out? She went right into it. Brayden needs a new iPad for school and Leia wants to do cheer and, cheer is so expensive. I actually looked around my truck like someone was filming a prank. I said, Tiffany, I'm paying tutors so my kid doesn't feel hopeless. I'm not buying your kid an iPad. She got quiet, then snapped. Wow, so you'll throw money at Mia but not your niece and nephew. I said, they have two parents. She said, so does Mia. I just stared at my steering wheel. The audacity, like my child's education was throwing money, but her shopping list was family support. My parents backed her, of course. My dad called me 2 days later. He didn't ask how I was, didn't ask about the road. He said, you need to stop spoiling that girl. I said, I'm not spoiling her, I'm supporting her. He said, tutors are for kids who are behind. I said, or for kids who want to learn better. He went, like I was saying something adorable and stupid. Then he said, Tiffany told us you're spending a fortune. If you can afford that, you can afford to contribute more to the family. There it was. Not, I'm proud you're helping your daughter. Not, that's good parenting. Just, where's my cut? This had been building for years. I paid my parents' phone plan for almost 2 years because my dad forgot to pay it and they got shut off. I covered it so Mia could call them. I lent them $1,800 when Dad's business hit a slow patch. I paid for a family vacation deposit that mysteriously turned into Tiffany's rent. Every time it was framed like I was being a good son, every time it felt like being an ATM with feelings. And I let it happen because I was trying to keep peace. I was trying to give Mia grandparents. I was trying to be the adult in the room. But the closer we got to Christmas, the weirder they got about Mia's grades. My mom started texting Mia directly. Stuff like, Grandma can't wait to see your report card. Remember, gifts are for winners. Mia showed me the messages and said, is she joking? And I said, sort of, but also no. And then my dad called a week before Christmas and said, we'll be bringing gifts. I said, cool. He said, for Tiffany's kids. I said, and Mia? He paused. And then he said, depends. I felt my jaw tighten. Depends on what? I said. Like it was obvious, he said, her grades. I said, Dad, don't do that. He said, no, don't tell me how to raise kids. I said, you're not raising her, I am. He laughed. A short, sharp laugh. We'll see how you feel when she's average. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, just come and be normal. It's one day. He said, excellence is normal. And then he hung up. So, yeah. By the time my dad said no gifts in my living room, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was the final cruel little cherry on top. And the worst part, he didn't even skip giving gifts. He just gave them to Tiffany's kids right in front of my daughter. Like she was a lesson. Like she was a warning label. Brayden tore open a box and yelled, new switch. Leia opened a bag and screamed, OMG, a Stanley Cup! Tiffany clapped her hands like her kids had just won the Olympics. Oh my God, Dad, you're the best, she said. My mom leaned toward Mia and said, see? Motivation. Mia's face went blank in that way kids do when they're trying not to cry in front of people. I looked at my dad and said calmly, Frank, pick those up. He didn't even look at me. He said, they're already opened. I said, I don't care. Pick them up. Tiffany's head snapped toward me. Excuse me? I said, this is my house. You don't get to humiliate my kid in my house. My dad finally looked at me, eyes cold. Then teach your kid to earn it. Mia flinched. Actually flinched, like his words were a slap. That's when something in me went quiet. Not rage. Not yelling. Just this cold clarity. I said, Mia, go to your room for a minute, okay? She whispered, hey, Dad. I said, please, She stood up slowly and walked down the hallway. I heard her door close. The room got tense. Tiffany said, wow, you're really doing this right now. My dad sat down like he owned the couch. Yes, we are. my mom said. Abraham, don't make a scene. I stared at her. I'm not making a scene. My dad waved a hand toward the ripped wrapping paper. She got a B. A B is not a reward grade. I said, you mean the B she got after months of work and tutors I paid for? My mom shrugged. If you had to pay for tutors, maybe she's not trying hard enough. I laughed. One single laugh. No humor in it. Tiffany said, I knew it. You think your kid is special? I said, I think my kid is a human being. My dad leaned forward. Don't talk back. I said, or what? You'll ground me? He stared at me like he couldn't compute that I wasn't scared anymore. My mom said, we are her grandparents. We have the right to guide her. I said, guiding is not shaming. My dad pointed toward the hallway. Bring her back out. She needs to learn. I said, no. He said louder, bring her back out. I said, still calm. No. Tiffany's voice rose. Are you seriously choosing Miss Hill over AB? I said, I'm choosing my kid over your ego. My dad stood up. If she can't handle consequences, she'll grow up soft. I said, she's 11. She handled 2 tutoring sessions a week all year. That's not soft. My mom stepped in, voice fake gentle. Abraham, this is just how your father is. You know that. Don't punish all of us for it. I looked at her and said, you're not all of us. You're part of it. You're standing here watching my child get punished while her cousins open gifts that were meant to rub it in her face. My dad scoffed. Rub it in. I said, yeah, because you could have just not brought gifts. But you brought them and handed them to Tiffany's kids in front of Mia. That's a message. Tiffany crossed her arms. So what, my kids shouldn't get gifts because your kid didn't earn hers? I said, my kid didn't do anything wrong. My dad said, she failed. I said, she got a B. My dad snapped. A B is a failure in our family. I stared at him for a long second. Then I said the sentence I didn't even know I had in me. Get out. Silence. My mom blinked. What? I said, get out of my house. My dad's face went red. You don't talk to me like that. I said, you don't talk about my daughter like that. Tiffany said, Abraham, calm down. I said, I'm calm. And I was... That was the scary part. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't yelling. I felt done. My dad pointed a finger at me. Take that phone down. I see you recording. I lifted my phone a little higher. Good, so you know exactly what happened. My mom's eyes went wide. Abraham, don't you dare. I said, this isn't about revenge. This is about closure. My dad barked a laugh. Closure? You sound like you swallowed the internet. I said, no. I sound like a father who's done watching his kid be treated like a charity case. Tiffany stepped toward me. Delete it. I said, apologize to Mia. My dad said, never. My mom said, don't be dramatic. It's discipline. I said, then discipline yourselves and leave. My dad grabbed the open gifts. Fine, we're taking these. I nodded. Good. Take them and don't come back until you can treat my daughter like she matters. My mom hissed, you're tearing the family apart. I said, you did that, not me. Tiffany grabbed her kids and started herding them toward the door, still clutching the switch box like it was a trophy. Braden whined, but I want to play it here. Tiffany snapped, your uncle is having a tantrum. I opened the front door and held it. My dad walked out last, slow like he wanted the final word. He leaned close and said, you will regret embarrassing me. I looked him right in the eye and said, you embarrassed yourself. Then I shut the door, and the second the lock clicked I heard Mia's door open down the hallway. She peeked out like a scared cat. I knelt down and said, hey, come here. She walked over and whispered, did I ruin Christmas? That question almost broke me. I said, no, baby, they did. She sniffed. But Grandpa said, Grandpa is wrong. She whispered, so I'm not getting anything. I swallowed hard. I said, you're getting something. Not because of grades, because I love you. She nodded like she wanted to believe me, but didn't fully trust it yet. That night, after she went to bed, I posted the video. Not with names, not with addresses. Just the clip of my dad's voice saying the line and my mom saying, only excellence gets rewarded. While Tiffany's kids opened the gifts meant for Mia, I captioned it, when grandparents judge good grades. Then I went to sleep. And I woke up to my phone vibrating like it was possessed. By 9 a.m., I had 63 missed calls from my mom, 28 from my dad, 41 from Tiffany, and texts from random cousins I haven't seen in years. The video didn't just get likes, it got shared. A lot. I didn't realize how small my town's online world is until my coworker texted me. Bro, is that your dad? I wrote back, yeah. He said, well, dude, people are pissed. I opened my notifications and my stomach dropped. Local Facebook groups, parent groups, word-of-mouth pages, people tagging people. Then I saw the comment that made my blood go cold. Isn't Frank last name the guy who owns company name? We hired him last year. My dad's clients were seeing it. They recognized him because he's one of those guys who puts his face on his company trucks. Big logo, big smile, big family values. Nonsense. My mom finally left a voicemail. Her voice was shaking with rage. Abraham, take it down. You have no idea what you've done. My dad texted me, all caps. Delete it now or I'm not kidding. Tiffany texted, you ruined Dad's business. You are taking this personally. Then another message. My kids are crying because people are calling them spoiled. Then this. This is why your ex left you. That one made me laugh because Tiffany will say anything if it hurts. I didn't respond. I just stared at my phone, feeling this weird mix of panic and peace. Because for once, the truth was out in the open. They couldn't rewrite it. They couldn't smooth it over with, "That's not what happened." Because it literally was what happened. Around noon, my dad finally called again. I answered because I wanted to hear what he'd say. He didn't even say hello. He yelled, "You think this is funny?" I said, "No." No. He said, "I have men calling me canceling jobs." I said, that sounds like consequences. He exploded. "You set me up." I said, "You did it in my living room." He said, you filmed me like I'm some monster." I said, "You spoke like one." My mom grabbed the phone. I could tell because her voice had that sharp inhale. "Abraham, that's not okay." I said, you punished an 11-year-old in front of her cousins." She snapped, "We were motivating her." I said, "No, you were humiliating her." My mom did the guilt thing next. "Your father worked his whole life. He has employees. He has a reputation." I said, "Mia has a heart. She has feelings. She has a father who will protect her." My mom hissed, "So you'll destroy us over one comment?" I said, "It wasn't one comment. It was a pattern and it ends now." My dad got back on. "I want it down in the next hour." I said, "I'll have to apologize to Mia." He said, "No." I said, "Then no." He said, I'll sue you." I said, For what?" "Recording in my own house." He went quiet for half a second, then said, "Defamation." I said, "It's not defamation if it's true." He started ranting again, but I cut him off. I said, You're not coming back to my home. You're not speaking to my daughter until you can treat her with basic respect. If you show up, I will call the police." My dad said, You wouldn't." I said, "Try me." Then I hung up. That night, I sat with Mia on the couch. I told her, people saw what happened, not to attack you, to defend you. Mia whispered, "Are people mad at Grandpa because of me?" I said, They're mad because adults shouldn't treat kids like that." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "So getting a B isn't bad." I said, "Getting a B after working hard is something to be proud of." She blinked. "But Grandma said only excellence gets rewarded." I said, "Grandma doesn't get to define excellence. Effort is excellence." Mia leaned against me like her body finally unclenched. 2 days later, Tiffany showed up at my door. I was home between runs. I saw her through the window and my stomach tightened. I didn't open the door. I spoke through it. "What do you want?" She screamed, "Open up!" I said, "No." She yelled, "You humiliated us!" I said, You humiliated my kid." She said, "Dad lost 2 big contracts. 2! Do you know what that means?" I said, "It means he should have been nicer to an 11-year-old." She shouted, "You owe him!" I almost laughed. "I owe him." She said, "You started this. Fix it." I said, "He started it in my living room." She slammed her hand on my door. "He's your father." I said, "And Mia is my daughter." She went quiet, then tried a different angle. Her voice dropped to fake sad. "Abraham, you always hated me." I said, "This isn't about you." She said, "It is. You're jealous. You always have been." I said, "I'm not jealous. I'm tired." Tiffany's voice got hard again. "You have money. You have that house. You're always acting like you're some hero because you drive a truck." I said, I drive a truck so my kid can have a stable life." She sneered. "Then be stable and take the video down." I said, "Not until Dad apologizes to Mia." Tiffany stared at the door like she wanted to burn it down with her eyes. Then she said something that told me everything. "Fine. How much?" I paused. "How much what?" "How much for you to delete it?" She said it like she was negotiating a used car. I felt my throat tighten. I said, "You think this is about money?" She snapped, "Everything is about money." I said, "No, this is about respect." Son. She rolled her eyes so hard I could practically hear it. "Respect doesn't pay bills," she said. I said, "Then tell Dad to stop acting like a bully on camera." She stormed off. And yes, it got any worse. Yeah. My dad's business started taking hits. People left reviews. Old customers wrote stuff like, "If he treats kids like that, imagine how he treats clients." My mom started calling extended family like a crisis hotline. Then I got texts from my aunt. "Your mother is heartbroken." From my cousin. "Frank is having chest pains." From my grandma. "Why are you doing this to your father on Christmas?" Not one person said, "How is Mia?" That was the most depressing part. So I made a decision. I didn't argue with every message. I sent one response to all of them. My daughter was shamed in my home. Until my parents apologized to her, there is nothing to discuss. Then I muted my phone. I started doing something I should have done years ago. I protected my peace. I also protected my kid. I blocked my parents and Tiffany on Mia's phone. I told Mia's teacher privately that family drama was happening and to let me know if Mia seemed off. And I got Mia a small gift that had nothing to do with grades. A little necklace with her initial? Nothing fancy. $35. She opened it and whispered, "I thought I didn't deserve gifts." I said, You don't earn love with numbers?" She held it like it was fragile, like she didn't trust it to be real. That's when I knew I couldn't go back to keeping the peace. Because peace was just Mia learning she had to be perfect to be loved. and I refuse to raise my daughter in that kind of cage. A week later, my dad emailed me from a new address. No greeting. Just take it down, you've made your point. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied with 3 sentences. You will not speak to my daughter like that again. You will not punish her in front of other children again. If you want a relationship with us, you will apologize to Mia directly. My mom sent a separate email. We did what was best. I didn't respond. Because that wasn't an apology. That was a justification. And I'm done negotiating reality with people who refuse to see it. This is what I did instead. I stopped paying their phone plan. I stopped taking their calls. I stopped hosting them. And I told Mia, clearly your worth is not your grades. Your worth is who you are. On Christmas morning, it was just me and her in the house. No tests, no report cards, no prove it. We made pancakes. We watched dumb movies. We wore pajamas until noon. Mia laughed like real laughter, not nervous laughter. She looked at me and said, this feels calm. And I said, that's what it's supposed to feel like. Later that night, she asked, do you miss Grandma and Grandpa? I thought about it, about the version of them I wanted them to be, about the grandparents Mia deserved but didn't get. I said, I miss what I hoped they could be. Mia nodded like she understood. Then she said, I'm glad you picked me. That's the moral right there. Sometimes family is just a word people use to demand access to you. Sometimes excellence is just a weapon. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is draw a hard line and say, you don't get to hurt my child to feel powerful, not in my house, not in my life, not ever. Grandparents turned school performance into a test of deserving love, giving all the gifts to the cousins and using Mia's B as an excuse. Her dad finally chose his daughter's peace over family expectations and stepped back. This story teaches us that a child's worth is not defined by grades, that real support must come with respect, and that a parent's first responsibility is their child's well-being.